We do have one change that's not here, so I wanted to start there and say, Manish could not make it, but Tracy is here.
Not Manish.
Yeah. Okay, so my name is Joah Spearman. I'm the co-founder of AvecMode. I also blog for Huffington Post about things related to style, fashion, etc. I also use my phone way too much, and so this is probably the longest I'll go without my phone this week. So bear with me. So quick sample from the audience. Raise your hand if you have downloaded an app in the last month. I think I got it near 100%. Okay, now raise your hand if at some point in the last year you have thought to yourself, man, I wish there was an app for that. Okay, so pretty much what's happening is everyone's using their phones, yet everyone still finds that there are other needs that their mobile phone is yet to fulfill. And these people on the stage with me are finding a lot of those needs and addressing them with their businesses. So I'm super excited to have them on the stage with me. So I will start to my left and let each of the panelists introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Anthony Kruemich. I'm the CEO of Bloodhound. And should I say much about?
Yeah.
Okay. We help people do business in person at events, so things like trade shows and conferences. We've got a self-serve platform. Organizer signs up, can create apps that the attendees and exhibitors use. So you should all download it for this event. This event is on there, I think. You can find each other, network, see the schedule, do all that kind of stuff. So Bloodhound.
And just moving ahead just a little bit, if we look at Web 2.0 companies, a lot of Web 2.0 companies, they struggled to find their monetization strategies. Yet they were highly successful in getting exorbitant valuations and whatnot. Now there are companies being built strictly for mobile. So starting with you, Anthony, what are some of the maybe mistakes that some Web 2.0 companies made that you think mobile companies can look at and correct?
I would say the biggest constraint that mobile puts on a developer, or if you're coming up with, you've got your own company, is that it's really, you can't waste any of the user's time, right? You're engaging them at a specific moment, they're doing something, you're interrupting them, and so there's not a lot of room for fluff. You can't have, you've got to really think very, very carefully about the user experience, exactly what needs to be here, nothing more than that. And I think that kind of, conservative line of thinking in terms of your product development and your user experience is something that wasn't always done with some of the Web 2.0, applications and stuff, and that's a useful takeaway.
I think that we can all agree that the web has evolved over the last 20 years, obviously, and we do have Google, which followed Lycos and others, et cetera. And so, what are some of the successes that Web 2.0 companies had that maybe their predecessors didn't have, and how can mobile companies build on top of that success from Web 2.0? That's open all over.
I'll jump. So I think one of the, what Web 2.0 companies were really, really good at tapping into their users, right? They tapped into their users for content, for getting people to share invitations out to other people. And so mobile, I think, in terms of thinking about it more as a network of people, and at that moment, how do you get somebody to loop somebody else in, the word of mouth, the virality. I think there's a lot of, I've certainly looked at literally, the viral flows of sign up that they had on, Facebook and LinkedIn, and how do these different services do it really well when thinking about how do you architect a mobile user experience that similarly can drive that level of adoption, even though you're on a phone rather than sitting in front of a computer.
Yeah. And thinking about two companies that are kind of probably at the tip of the spear in terms of notifications because they have so many users and people that have downloaded their apps, Twitter and Facebook. So starting with you, Anthony, can you talk to us about those two companies and what they're doing through mobile devices, and more importantly, which one do you think seems to understand where mobile is going, and how can the other work harder to address some gaps that they have today?
It's a good question, because I don't necessarily have a great answer. I think that Twitter's done a better job with it, but that's in large part, it's a very different service, right? It's like Facebook is a company that was built on the web, they're figuring out how they're going mobile, right? And so they're at least experimenting. They're floundering in some ways, right? They had the whole HTML5 kind of fiasco that they backed off of. They went native. You always hear about them trying to figure out their monetization. I think there's huge opportunity for them in terms of the social implications of I want to go to some place now and where are my friends, more so than on Twitter. But Twitter's kind of already nailing it, just in terms of, I have a moment, I'm going to post something, I'm going to get out there, we're going to unify the experience, and I can quickly, I get different notifications, somebody wants to catch me. I mean, some of the, I think we actually met basically through Twitter, right?
Yeah.
And I've met other report, you send a message to somebody, you like something, they fire one back to you, then you're doing a DM, and then all of a sudden it's like a conversation and you're meeting up, right? And so that's worked really well, and I think that streamlined simplicity is something that Facebook can look at, because the app's done a lot better, but it's still got a lot of stuff in it, and figuring out what's the right core interaction you want to drive.
Gotcha.
I like trying to think about the real world interactions that you can drive through it. So when we were talking earlier about, if you're looking at conversions on the web, you're looking at people splitting hairs on percentage, 1%, 2%, 3% for driving an e-commerce purchase or something. But in the real world, in retail, it's like 60, 80%. If you're walking around a store because you're actually physically doing it, you're so much more likely to actually make a purchase to buy something. And so it's can mobile help facilitate these real world interactions that you want to drive? In my case, it's connecting business people, right? And since the other end of it, the receiving end, the business also is using something that's on our platform, we can measure that still, right? So even if we're driving a consumer to meet somebody else and then he's got a business lead out of it, that's come through us and we still know. And so we understand the value that we are playing in that chain. But
do you see, as in thinking about the future of mobile, is there a bigger slice of this that's going to start coming out of SaaS companies or companies that are more B2B focused? I can't think of what a Salesforce.com does today through mobile devices, but I can imagine that that's something they care about. So what are some B2B companies out there that you think could stand to benefit from having a deeper mobile imprint and strategy?
Yeah, definitely. You mentioned Salesforce. It's in my mind, there's a lot of, being at a desktop, you're sitting at a desk, right, in your office or something like that, and then so much of what you do ends up going on in person, and it's all this unstructured lost data, right? It's not actually connected to anything. And so think about Salesforce is trying to help you track your customer relationships. What's helping you initiate them, right? What's helping you actually do the discovery of this is a person you should meet, or that is a potentially good, client for you. Yeah. So trying to connect, that, even LinkedIn, you start to think, that's, more consumer, but it's they want people to actually meet each other, right? How do you deal with the discovery side of it? And so any business company that can move into that space, I think it's a powerful spot.
What are some other hobbies or activities that people do on a daily basis, or maybe they would like to do? Everyone wants to be a photographer, but very few people are willing to take the time to build the skill. So what are some other areas that you see Instagram-like model being applied to? I had a friend who's a restaurateur, and we were talking about if there was ever a way to capture your smell through an iPhone or through Android and transmit that to someone, like a scratch and tint or something like that. Are there any industries, like photography, that you see being kind of taken over by this new mobile technology?
Video is a big question. Is video going to be able to, video is really hard. It's harder than just taking a photo. So that's why I don't think anyone's cracked the nut on it. You heard about Instagram for video with a bunch of different services, and then I think they fell a little flat relative to the expectations. But there's still an outstanding question, I think, about video. Is that going to be something that an Instagram distribution kind of model can be, broadcast model rather, can be brought into?
Yeah.
Hello. So for a long time, I was an Android user, and I just got an iPhone a couple months ago. And I've noticed that the iPhone ecosystem is just it's far richer than on the Android. There's just so many more apps. The experience is so much better. That, there's more and more Android users, and I believe there's more Android users than iPhone users. So I always there a better Android experience? Why aren't more people developing for the Android? If there are actually more people. And so I just wanted to get your opinions on that, about why the Android is kind of the red-headed child, on the end, and the iPhone kind of gets all the fun.
It's a great question, especially because you just said that you may be looking at the iPad rather than Android as your next platform. So
I'm good. Yeah. So it's all about fragmentation. It's the iPhone, iOS, I've got 5 devices I can have in my office, we can test on them. It's pretty easy. The tools that they provide, Apple provides, are, they're good, whatever. But the key thing is that there's something like 4,000 different Android devices for me to possibly test on. And you can look at, okay, you've got some market share. If you take the top 20 devices in the market right now, though, you've still only got something like, I don't know, like 40% overall of all the penetration of, of Android users. So it's like this long tail. Actually, I mean, it's so bad that like they're basically collecting phones and boxes, all the mobile developers around here. And we've got a little initiative called Mobile Dev Shop, where we're trying to basically just create like the Library of Congress for mobile devices. So there's one spot where everyone can go to test just for the community, right? Because of this issue, it's inhibiting us all from going as hard after Android as we'd like to, because it's just a real nuisance. And we get these irate emails from people that are like, it doesn't work on my this, that, or the other phone, and I'm like, where am I going to buy that? Like Craigslist, like how am I going to find that phone? So, yeah, it's a big problem.
Yeah. Well, thank you all so much for your great questions, and let's give these panelists a hand.